I'm grateful you joined tonight. Your nervous system has been keeping score all day, counting faces, tracking voices, measuring distances between you and strangers. Tonight, you'll discover why your brain craves silence after crowds and understand why solitude isn't loneliness, but medicine. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, perhaps finally alone after a long day of people, or feeling that familiar relief when the door closes behind the last guest, allow yourself this quietness. We'll journey through 100 psychology facts about social rest and sleep, from the invisible weight of watching eyes, to the chemistry of crowd exhaustion, to the moment your brain finally whispers safe. Alone. Sleep now. This thoughtful journey through consciousness builds bridges between searching minds. Your gentle support, a like, subscribe, or a quiet share, creates a pathway for more solitude seekers to discover and brings us closer to protect this sanctuary for every tired mind who finds their way here. One peaceful night, one sleepy soul at a time. Your healing journey inspires ours. Let yourself settle completely here. Feel your jaw unclench, your breath deepen naturally. You can let these thoughts drift past without holding them. Sense that soothing heaviness enveloping you, like your consciousness slowly dimming its brightness. Thoughts dissolving into the peaceful fog of approaching sleep, safe and undisturbed. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where social masks dissolve into genuine stillness. Let your mind release the day's performances. And now we begin. You woke up this morning and your brain immediately began calculating. Not math, not schedules, but people. How many would you see today? How close would they stand? Would you need to smile? To explain yourself. To perform the small dance of being acceptable in public spaces. This is simply your social brain doing what evolution designed it to do. Constant awareness disguised as everyday noticing. Recent research reveals that our brains process social information even before we're consciously aware of other people's presence, activating the anterior cingulate cortex within milliseconds of detecting a human face. Your exhaustion from crowds doesn't begin when you feel tired. It begins the moment you sense you're being observed. The human brain uses approximately 20 to 25% of your body's total energy, though it represents only about 2% of your body weight. When you're alone, much of this energy goes toward maintenance, memory consolidation, and creative thinking. But when you're in a crowd, your brain redirects this precious energy towards social processing. The temporoparietal junction, which helps you understand others' intentions, increases its activity significantly in social situations. The medial prefrontal cortex, responsible for thinking about what others think about you, consumes enormous glucose resources. Every person you interact with is a small tax on your brain's energy budget. By evening, you're not just tired, you're literally running on fumes. Your neurons depleted of the fuel they need to keep you calm and regulated. There's a reason you feel different after a party versus after a quiet walk alone. Social interaction triggers your sympathetic nervous system, the same system responsible for fight or flight responses. Recent research in psychoneuroendocrinology shows that sustained social engagement for periods longer than 3 hours can elevate cortisol levels significantly, even in people who describe themselves as extroverted. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, prepares your body for action. Faster heartbeat, heightened alertness, increased blood pressure. This response made sense for our ancestors, who needed to stay vigilant in tribal gatherings where alliances shifted and conflicts could emerge suddenly. But your body can't distinguish between an uncertain social situation and a harmless office meeting. It responds to both with the same ancient chemistry, flooding your system with stress hormones that take hours to metabolize fully. Your eyes are doing invisible work in crowds. When you look at someone's face, your brain activates the fusiform face area, a region dedicated entirely to facial recognition and expression reading. Research demonstrates that processing facial expressions requires coordinated activity across multiple brain regions simultaneously. You're unconsciously reading micro-expressions, pupil dilation, skin tone changes, and muscle tension in every face you encounter. A 10-minute conversation involves processing thousands of subtle facial cues. Multiply this by every person you see throughout the day, and you begin to understand why your brain feels foggy by evening. You haven't just been talking to people. You've been performing complex computational analysis over and over, until your neural circuits literally beg for rest. Noise isn't just bothersome. It's physiologically disruptive to sleep preparation. The World Health Organization's environmental noise guidelines confirm that chronic exposure to ambient noise above 55 decibels significantly impairs sleep quality. But crowds don't just create steady noise. They create unpredictable noise, which your brain finds far more stressful. Research shows that irregular human voices activate the amygdala, your brain's alarm center, more intensely than constant mechanical sounds of the same volume. Your nervous system can't habituate to conversation patterns the way it can to white noise or rainfall. Every laugh, every sudden exclamation, every shift in vocal tone pulls your attention outward when your body desperately wants to turn inward toward rest. The concept of social battery that circulates in popular psychology has a real biological basis. Your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for self-control and appropriate social behavior, runs on a limited supply of neurotransmitters, particularly dopamine and norepinephrine. Research demonstrates that these neurotransmitters deplete with sustained use, similar to how muscles fatigue during exercise. After approximately 4 to 6 hours of continuous social interaction, most people show measurable decreases in self-regulation capacity. You become more irritable, less patient, more prone to social mistakes. This isn't weakness or rudeness. This is your brain operating on depleted neurochemical reserves, struggling to maintain the complex inhibitions that make civilized interaction possible. And that's perfectly natural. Personal space violations create measurable stress responses. When someone stands closer than approximately 18 to 24 inches from you without permission, your amygdala activates within milliseconds. This triggers a cascade of stress hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline flood your bloodstream. Your heart rate increases by an average of 8 to 12 beats per minute, and your skin conductance rises as your body prepares for potential intrusion. In crowded environments like subways, elevators, or packed stores, you experience these micro-stress responses dozens or even hundreds of times. Each one is small, but they accumulate. By the time you reach home, your body has been in a low-level state of defensive arousal for hours, making the transition to sleep's vulnerability extremely difficult. There's an evolutionary reason why solitude feels restorative. For most of human history, being alone meant you were safe enough that no vigilance was required. Your ancestors only relaxed their guard when they could be certain no predators or hostile humans were nearby. Anthropological studies examining modern hunter-gatherer societies found that individuals in these communities spend an average of 2 to 4 hours per day in complete solitude, often during the hottest part of the day when predators are least active. Your brain interprets aloneness as a safety signal. When you're finally alone, your parasympathetic nervous system can activate fully, initiating the rest and digest response that prepares your body for sleep. The relief you feel when people leave isn't antisocial. It's your ancient brain recognizing that the social performance can finally end. Your immune system responds to social stress. Research from Carnegie Mellon University found that people who reported high levels of social stress showed increased expression of pro-inflammatory genes, the same genetic patterns associated with chronic disease risk. After just 2 hours in a crowded, socially demanding environment, participants showed measurable increases in inflammatory markers like interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein. These inflammatory signals interfere with sleep architecture, particularly reducing time spent in deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep. When your body perceives social strain, it prioritizes immune activation over sleep depth, keeping you in lighter, more easily disrupted sleep stages. Avoiding crowds isn't just about comfort. It's about allowing your immune system to stand down so sleep can do its healing work. The mere presence of others changes your brain waves. Neuroscientists at MIT discovered that when people are observed by others, their default mode network, the brain system active during rest and self-reflection, shows significantly reduced activity. This network typically generates alpha waves associated with relaxed awareness and theta waves linked to creativity and dreaming. In social situations, your brain shifts toward beta waves, associated with active thinking and external focus. Even after social interaction ends, it can take 60 to 90 minutes for your brain waves to fully transition back to the alpha-theta patterns that facilitate sleep onset. The people you saw hours ago are still affecting your brain's electrical rhythms, preventing the neural shift that sleep requires. And that's perfectly natural. Introverts and extroverts process social stimulation differently at a neurological level. Studies using functional MRI scans found that people who identify as introverted show greater activation in the anterior prefrontal cortex during social interaction, suggesting they're doing more complex processing of social information. Their brains also show higher baseline activity in the acetylcholine system, a neurotransmitter network associated with inward-focused attention and deep thinking. Extroverts, conversely, show greater dopamine sensitivity in reward circuits when socializing. Neither pattern is better or worse, but they create different energy dynamics. For the more introverted nervous system, social interaction is genuinely more cognitively expensive, requiring greater neural resources and leaving less energy available for sleep initiation. Understanding this isn't about labeling yourself. It's about honoring your particular brain's needs. Eye contact is neurologically intense. When you make direct eye contact with another person, a network of brain regions activates simultaneously. The superior temporal sulcus, the amygdala, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the anterior cingulate cortex. Research on eye contact reveals that sustained gaze of more than 3 seconds can trigger neural arousal patterns similar to heightened awareness. Your pupils dilate slightly. Your heart rate increases by an average of 4 beats per minute, and your skin conductance rises. In a single day of normal social interaction, you might make eye contact hundreds of times. Each instance is a small neurological event, a moment of heightened arousal and attention. By evening, your eye contact circuits are exhausted, which is why avoiding people's gaze feels so relieving when you're tired. Your brain is simply conserving the energy these interactions demand. The concept of social hangover has biological validity. After intense social interaction, the body experiences a rebound effect similar to physical exertion. Cortisol levels, which elevate during socializing, don't immediately return to baseline when interaction ends. Instead, they often rise again gradually, approximately 2 to 3 hours later, as your body processes the accumulated stress. This delayed cortisol surge can occur right around bedtime, explaining why you sometimes feel more anxious in the evening after a socially busy day. Even though the interactions themselves seemed pleasant, your endocrine system is still metabolizing the chemistry of connection, making sleep onset difficult despite your mental and physical exhaustion. Empathy is exhausting. When you empathize with someone, your mirror neuron system activates, essentially simulating their emotional state in your own brain. Research found that healthcare workers and therapists who engage in high levels of professional empathy show measurable changes in brain regions associated with emotional regulation after sustained practice. This doesn't mean empathy is harmful, but it does mean empathy costs energy. When you spend your day feeling with and for others, you're essentially running their emotions through your own neural circuits. By night, your brain needs to stop simulating and return to just being yourself. Solitude allows your mirror neurons to finally rest, no longer reflecting others' inner states, but simply existing in your own experience. Background conversation is one of the most sleep-disruptive sounds, even more than traffic or music. Research published in Sleep Medicine found that the human brain cannot ignore speech sounds, even when you're not consciously listening. The superior temporal gyrus, which processes language, automatically activates when it detects speech patterns, pulling cognitive resources away from sleep preparation. Unlike white noise or nature sounds, conversation contains semantic meaning that your brain compulsively tries to decode. Even overhearing strangers talking in a restaurant or hearing muffled voices through apartment walls engages your language centers, preventing the neural quieting that sleep requires. This is why the silence after people leave feels so profoundly different. Your brain can finally stop processing language and slip into the wordless state where dreams begin. Social comparison is a constant, unconscious process in crowds. Every time you see another person, your brain automatically assesses relative status, attractiveness, and social value. This happens in the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex, regions that activate without conscious awareness. Research found that people make unconscious social comparison judgments within milliseconds of seeing another person's face or body. In a crowded space, your brain performs hundreds of these micro-comparisons, each one requiring cognitive resources and each one potentially triggering subtle stress responses if the comparison feels unfavorable. This relentless comparative processing exhausts the circuits responsible for self-esteem regulation, often leaving you feeling vaguely inadequate or socially vulnerable by day's end. exactly the opposite of the safety and security sleep requires. The stress of potential interaction is sometimes worse than actual interaction. Research found that people's cortisol levels were higher in situations where social interaction was possible but uncertain, compared to situations with guaranteed interaction or guaranteed solitude. The ambiguity itself creates stress. Will someone talk to me? Should I smile? Do I look approachable? Your brain dislikes uncertainty and burns enormous energy trying to prepare for all possible social scenarios. This is why walking through a crowded mall can feel more draining than having a one-hour conversation. The constant possibility of interaction keeps your social monitoring systems activated without respite, creating sustained low-level stress that interferes with the evening's transition to rest. Your circadian rhythm responds to social stimulation. Light isn't the only Zeitgeber, time giver, that regulates your biological clock. Social interaction itself can shift circadian phase. Engaging conversation, particularly if emotionally arousing, can delay melatonin production by up to 45 minutes. This made evolutionary sense when social bonds were critical for survival. Staying alert during important social time was adaptive. But in modern life, where social stimulation can continue late into the evening through digital communication or late social events, this mechanism can severely disrupt sleep timing. Your circadian system interprets social engagement as a signal that it's still day, that vigilance is still required, postponing the biological night until you're finally, truly alone. Touch from strangers activates different neural pathways than touch from loved ones. Research using neuroimaging shows that unexpected or unwanted touch from strangers activates the insular cortex and amygdala, regions associated with vigilance and discomfort. Even accidental brushing against strangers in crowds triggers these defensive circuits. Your body releases small bursts of cortisol and adrenaline with each unwanted touch, preparing for possible concern. In contrast, consensual touch from trusted others activates the release of oxytocin and endorphins, promoting calm and bonding. The casual physical contact, inevitable in crowded spaces, bumping on public transit, navigating narrow aisles, standing in packed elevators, creates a constant, low-level activation of defensive responses. By the time you're home, your body has experienced dozens of micro-defensive reactions, leaving your nervous system primed for protection rather than relaxation. Decision fatigue accumulates through social interaction. Every social moment requires micro-decisions: what to say, how to respond, whether to smile, when to look away, how to position your body. Research found that people make an average of 67 social micro-decisions per hour of interaction. These decisions deplete glucose in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for self-regulation and decision-making. As glucose depletes, decision quality decreases and decision fatigue increases. This is why you might feel mentally foggy after a day of meetings. Even if you weren't doing intellectually demanding work, the constant stream of social decisions has exhausted your prefrontal resources. Sleep restores these resources, but only if you can access sleep. The catch is that entering sleep itself requires executive function, the ability to create the conditions for rest, to resist checking your phone, to maintain sleep hygiene. Crowds deplete the very capacity you need to fall asleep, and there's nothing wrong with that. Your startle reflex becomes more sensitive with social exhaustion. The amygdala, which governs responses to sudden stimuli, becomes hyperactive after prolonged social stimulation, particularly in crowded or unpredictable environments. Studies measuring acoustic startle responses found that participants showed significantly stronger startle reactions to sudden sounds after 4 hours in a crowded shopping environment compared to 4 hours alone. This heightened startle response is your nervous system remaining in a state of defensive readiness. Unable to fully relax even when the crowd is gone, the hypervigilance that kept your ancestors safe in uncertain social situations now keeps you from the deep relaxation sleep requires. Your body is still scanning for uncertainties that have passed, jumping at small noises, unable to trust that you're truly safe enough to become unconscious. Loneliness and solitude are neurologically opposite states. Loneliness, unwanted social isolation, activates the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, a region associated with distress. Research confirms that chronic loneliness literally creates discomfort, showing brain activation patterns similar to physical unease. But chosen solitude activates completely different networks. Voluntary time alone increases activity in the default mode network, associated with self-reflection, creativity, and mental restoration. It allows the medial prefrontal cortex, exhausted from thinking about what others think, to finally rest. Understanding this distinction is crucial. Seeking solitude isn't the same as experiencing loneliness. One is discomfort, the other is medicine. When you choose to be alone after crowds, you're not isolating yourself. You're giving your social brain the rest it desperately needs to function well tomorrow. The social baseline theory suggests that the human brain's default setting assumes the presence of close others for resource sharing and vigilance management. This means your brain actually has to work harder when you're alone in some contexts, particularly in novel or uncertain environments. But research adds crucial nuance. This increased effort only applies when you're alone in situations where you'd benefit from social support. When you're safe at home, the opposite is true. Your brain can finally stop maintaining social awareness circuits, stop monitoring for others' needs and judgments, and redirect those resources toward restoration. The relief of being alone in a safe space isn't antisocial or unhealthy. It's your brain correctly recognizing that right now. In this moment, the most adaptive thing you can do is stop performing and start recovering. Performance awareness isn't limited to stages and presentations. Research found that most people experience measurable increases in cortisol and heart rate variability simply from being observed during routine tasks. When someone watches you work, eat, or even just walk, your performance monitoring system activates, increasing self-consciousness and reducing task efficiency. In crowds, you're constantly observed and constantly observing, creating a state of perpetual mild performance awareness. Your brain is monitoring how you appear to others while simultaneously trying to complete whatever task you're actually there to do. This dual processing demand is cognitively expensive and emotionally draining. The privacy of solitude allows you to stop performing, to be merely functional rather than socially appropriate, conserving energy for the vulnerable performance of sleep. There's a reason why many people sleep better in hotels or when traveling alone compared to their normal crowded lives. It's not just the comfortable bed or change of scenery. Research found that removing yourself from familiar social contexts allows your brain to release chronic social vigilance patterns. When you're away from your usual social environment, the relationships you maintain, the roles you perform, the expectations you navigate, all temporarily pause. Your brain interprets this as permission to deeply rest, free from the invisible weight of social obligations. Even in your own home, the knowledge that you could be interrupted, that someone might need something, that you're still accessible socially, keeps your nervous system in a state of light activation. True solitude, chosen and protected, tells your brain no one needs you right now. You can finally, fully rest. And that permission is sometimes the only medicine exhausted social circuits truly need. Let's pause here and breathe into this recognition. Place one hand on your heart. Feel it beating, just for you. Not performing for anyone, not adjusting to anyone's rhythm, just beating. Notice where in your body you still hold the day's people. Perhaps tension in your jaw from smiling, tightness in your shoulders from staying appropriately open, fatigue behind your eyes from meeting so many gazes. Breathe into each space, and as you exhale, imagine releasing each person back into their own life, no longer yours to carry, to manage, to hold. You are allowed to be just yourself now, not the self that performs, not the self that adapts, just the quiet animal of your body, breathing alone in the dark. We continue. Just you and these words. Nothing more required. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, has a complex role in social contexts. While it promotes connection with trusted others, research shows that oxytocin actually increases defensive responses and in-group favoritism when you're around strangers or outgroups. In crowded public spaces filled with unfamiliar people, oxytocin can heighten your sense of social boundaries rather than social bonding. Your brain releases oxytocin in response to social stimulation. But instead of making you feel warm and connected, it makes you more vigilant about who belongs to your group and who doesn't. This neurochemical defensiveness contributes to the drained, slightly guarded feeling that sometimes follows time in crowds. It's not paranoia. It's oxytocin doing one of its less discussed jobs, keeping you alert to social boundaries in uncertain tribal territory. The vagus nerve, which connects your brain to your heart, lungs, and digestive system, plays a crucial role in how you respond to social environments. People with higher vagal tone, stronger vagus nerve activity, show better stress resilience and faster recovery from social stimulation. During calm, safe social interaction, the vagus nerve promotes what's called social engagement mode, characterized by relaxed breathing, steady heart rate, and easeful facial expressions. But in crowds, particularly with strangers or in competitive social contexts, vagal tone decreases. Your breathing becomes shallower, your heart rate more variable, and your digestive system less efficient. This shift away from ventral vagal activation towards sympathetic activation creates the physical unease you feel in crowded spaces. The slight nausea, the chest tightness, the feeling that you can't quite catch your breath. Solitude allows your vagus nerve to re-engage its calming influence, restoring the parasympathetic state that makes sleep possible. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation, depletes differently depending on your personality structure. Research found that introverted individuals experience dopamine depletion approximately 40% faster during social interaction compared to extroverted individuals. This isn't because introverts are socially anxious or dislike people. It's because their dopamine systems respond more strongly to internal rewards like reading, thinking, and creating, and less strongly to external social rewards. After several hours of socializing, an introvert's dopamine reserves are genuinely low, creating a feeling not of tiredness but of emptiness, as though some essential vitality has been drained away. Sleep helps, but only if preceded by solitude. The brain needs time in a low-stimulation environment to replenish dopamine stores before it can transition into the dopamine-independent state of deep sleep. Your sense of smell is processing social information constantly, far below conscious awareness. Humans emit chemical signals called pheromones through sweat, breath, and skin oils. Research using gas chromatography confirmed that humans can unconsciously detect and respond to emotional chemosignals from other people. The scent of someone's stress, for example, triggers measurable responses in those nearby. In crowded spaces, you're swimming in a chemical mixture of others' emotional states. Their stress, their excitement, their fatigue, their concern. Your olfactory system processes these signals and communicates directly with your amygdala and hippocampus, bypassing conscious awareness, but nevertheless affecting your emotional state. The neutral air of solitude, free from others' chemical traces, allows your limbic system to finally stop processing invisible emotional information. This olfactory rest is part of why fresh air alone, away from human scent, feels so restorative. Social discomfort and physical sensations share neural circuitry. When you feel socially rejected, excluded, or awkward, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex and anterior insula activate, the same regions that process physical sensations. Research confirmed that social discomfort registers in the same gentle way physical sensations do. In crowds, you experience micro-rejections constantly. Someone doesn't return your smile. You're not included in a conversation. You feel invisible or dismissed. Each instance is small, but they accumulate throughout the day, creating what neuroscientists call social discomfort load. By evening, you're not just tired, you're actually in a subtle state of unease. Your brain's sensory centers moderately activated from hours of small social moments. Sleep is when the brain processes and heals from these sensations. But you cannot access restorative sleep while still in an uncomfortable state. Solitude removes the source of ongoing social discomfort, allowing healing to begin. The anterior cingulate cortex, buried deep in the middle of your brain, acts as a conflict monitor during social interaction. It detects when your internal state doesn't match what you're displaying externally. When you smile while feeling sad. When you act interested while feeling bored. When you appear confident while feeling uncertain. Research using real-time fMRI shows that this conflict monitoring creates measurable metabolic stress. Your anterior cingulate works harder and harder as the gap between your authentic internal experience and your social performance widens. This is why a day of putting on a good face leaves you so drained. Your brain has been working overtime to manage the dissonance between truth and performance. Solitude allows this conflict to dissolve. You can finally feel what you feel without simultaneously managing how you appear. The anterior cingulate can rest, and that rest is prerequisite for the kind of deep sleep where true restoration happens. Your brain's metabolic demands shift dramatically during social interaction. While your neurons work to process faces, voices, and intentions, they consume fuel at rates comparable to physical exercise. After hours of this invisible effort, you may notice subtle signs: difficulty finding words, slower thinking, a foggy quality to your thoughts. This isn't weakness. It's your brain operating on depleted reserves, honestly signaling its need for restoration. Sleep allows metabolic recovery, but initiating sleep requires energy. This creates a delicate situation. You need fuel to rest, but you've spent your fuel navigating people. Quiet solitude, with minimal cognitive demand, gives your brain time to restore energy levels enough to access sleep. Emotions spread between people like ripples across water. When you're near someone experiencing strong feelings, your own emotional state begins shifting within seconds, often without conscious awareness. In a crowd, you're exposed to dozens of emotional currents: frustration, anxiety, joy, impatience. By day's end, you might feel emotionally overwhelmed without understanding why. You've been carrying not just your own experience, but fragments of everyone else's inner weather. Solitude stops this spreading. Your emotional system can finally rest, no longer forced to reflect and absorb. You can return to just your own emotional baseline, singular and simple: your working memory, the mental workspace where you hold and manipulate information, has limited capacity. Classic research established this at about 7 items, but more recent studies suggest it might be as few as 3 to 4 items for complex information. During social interaction, working memory is constantly occupied with social information: what was just said, what you're about to say, what you think they're thinking, what social rules apply to this context, and how to navigate them all simultaneously. Research found that social conversation occupies approximately 75% of working memory capacity, leaving very little room for other mental tasks. This is why you sometimes can't remember simple things after a socially busy day. Your working memory has been fully occupied with the demands of interaction. Sleep consolidates working memory contents into long-term storage, clearing the workspace. But you need empty working memory to fall asleep. The repetitive thoughts and social replays that keep you awake are partially working memory's attempt to process the day's social information. Solitude, with minimal new social input, allows working memory to finally finish its processing and empty itself in preparation for sleep. The endocrine system responds to social density with a cascade of hormonal shifts. After just 30 minutes in a crowded space, your body's delicate hormone balance changes. Growth hormone decreases while activating hormones increase. This hormonal profile creates wakefulness when your body needs rest, a mismatch that can persist for hours after the crowd exposure ends. Your glands are still secreting stress hormones when you desperately need them to shift towards sleep hormones. This biochemical inertia is one reason why you can't simply decide to relax after social stress. Your entire endocrine system needs time to recalibrate, and that recalibration happens most efficiently in solitude, where no new social stressors trigger the stress hormone cascade, simply allowing time to restore. There's an optimal social group size that humans can comfortably manage, known as Dunbar's number. Approximately 150 meaningful relationships But research suggests the number of people you can actively track and feel connected to simultaneously is much smaller, around 5 to 15, depending on context. In crowds, you're surrounded by far more humans than your social brain was designed to process simultaneously. The resulting cognitive overload activates the same brain regions associated with error detection and conflict. Your posterior cingulate cortex, which helps maintain a sense of social position and belonging, shows increased activation and increased metabolic demand in crowds. It's working diligently to contextualize all these people, to determine who matters, who might need attention, where you fit. This excessive activation exhausts the neural networks responsible for feeling socially secure. By evening, you don't just want to be alone. Your brain needs to reduce the number of social connections it's tracking down to zero, at least temporarily, to recover its sense of coherent social identity. Acoustic startle reflex. Your involuntary flinch response to sudden loud noises becomes exaggerated after prolonged social stress. The neural circuit responsible involves the amygdala, the brain stem, and the spinal cord. Studies measuring this reflex found that it becomes approximately 30% more pronounced after 4 hours in a socially demanding environment. This means you're literally more easily startled, your nervous system poised for defensive responses. The hyperarousal isn't just mental, it's embedded in your brainstem, in reflexes you cannot consciously control. When you're home alone and find yourself startling at small sounds, you're experiencing the residual hypervigilance from the day's social demands. Your nervous system needs convincing that uncertainty has passed, that you can stand down from defensive readiness. Solitude provides this convincing through absence of evidence. No footsteps, no voices, no unpredictable human movements. Slowly, over minutes and hours alone, your startle threshold returns to normal. Only then can sleep's vulnerability feel safe enough to attempt. The neurotransmitter GABA, which promotes calmness and reduces neural excitability, operates less effectively during and after social stress. GABA is your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, the chemical that tells neurons to slow down, be quiet, stop firing. Research found that social stress reduces GABA receptor sensitivity. Even with normal GABA levels, your neurons are less responsive to its calming message. This creates a state of neural hyperexcitability where your brain struggles to quiet itself. Thoughts race, attention jumps, relaxation feels impossible. Sleep medications that target GABA receptors work by artificially boosting GABA activity. But there's a natural alternative: removing the stressor. In solitude, without ongoing social demands, GABA receptor sensitivity naturally recovers over the course of 2 to 4 hours. Your brain's own calming system can work again. No medication needed. Just time, silence, and the absence of people. Your heart rate variability, the variation in time between heartbeats, is a sensitive measure of nervous system flexibility and stress resilience. Higher HRV indicates better stress adaptation and healthier autonomic function. Research found that HRV decreases significantly during social interaction, particularly with strangers or in evaluative contexts. Lower HRV is associated with increased inflammation, reduced sleep quality, and higher vulnerability to stress. After a day of reduced HRV from social demands, your cardiovascular system needs recovery time. Solitude, particularly solitude, combined with slow breathing or gentle movement, allows HRV to increase again. As HRV rises, your parasympathetic nervous system regains influence over your sympathetic system. Your heart rate slows and steadies. Your breathing deepens. Blood pressure decreases. This cardiovascular shift is not just relaxation. It's the necessary physiological precondition for sleep's profound vulnerability. You cannot surrender to sleep while your heart is still beating the rhythm of social vigilance. The social brain uses a distinct neural network called the mentalizing network, which includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the temporoparietal junction, the superior temporal sulcus, and the posterior cingulate. This network activates whenever you think about mental states, yours or others. Research confirms that this network shows elevated activity during all forms of social cognition, from simple face recognition to complex moral reasoning. In crowds, this network operates continuously, trying to model what others are thinking, feeling, wanting, planning. The metabolic cost is substantial. These brain regions consume oxygen and glucose at rates comparable to physical exercise. By evening, the mentalizing network is depleted, which is why you might feel a strange kind of social blindness or emotional numbness when very tired. You've exhausted your capacity to think about thinking. Sleep allows this network to restore, but only after it stops being activated. Solitude turns off the mentalizing network's trigger, the presence of other minds to model. Finally, your brain can stop the exhausting work of imagining inner lives beyond your own. You're still here with me, thoughts still flickering like candle light. Just notice. Don't judge. Just notice where your mind is. We're exploring the invisible architecture of social exhaustion, the science hidden inside your everyday relief. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. Sleep pressure builds throughout wakefulness through the accumulation of adenosine, a metabolic byproduct of neural activity. Every neuron that fires produces tiny amounts of adenosine. As adenosine accumulates in your brain, you feel increasingly sleepy. This is called sleep pressure or homeostatic sleep drive. Recent research suggests that social interaction produces adenosine faster than most other mental activities. The intense, sustained neural firing required for social cognition accelerates adenosine accumulation. After a socially busy day, your adenosine levels should be high, creating strong sleep pressure. But here's the paradox: cortisol, which rises during social stress, blocks adenosine receptors. You have the chemical signal for sleep, but stress hormones prevent your brain from receiving it. This is why you can be utterly exhausted yet unable to fall asleep. The sleep signal is there, but the stress static is louder only when cortisol finally clears, which requires hours in a calm, non-stimulating environment. Can adenosine do its job and pull you towards sleep? Neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new connections and reorganize itself, depends critically on sleep. During slow-wave sleep, your brain replays and consolidates the day's experiences, strengthening important neural connections while pruning unnecessary ones. Research found that social learning creates particularly complex neural patterns that require more consolidation time than non-social learning. When you navigate social situations all day, You're not just collecting information. You're creating intricate maps of who said what, who seemed friendly, who might need distance, what strategies worked, what mistakes to avoid. These social memories are encoded across multiple brain systems simultaneously. Emotional memory in the amygdala, factual memory in the hippocampus, procedural memory in the basal ganglia. Consolidating this distributed information requires substantial slow-wave sleep. But you can't get slow-wave sleep if you can't fall asleep. And you can't fall asleep if your social circuits are still activated. Solitude allows these circuits to quiet, so consolidation can begin. The glymphatic system, discovered in recent years and extensively studied, is your brain's waste clearance system. During deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid flows through brain tissue, washing away metabolic waste products, including beta amyloid and tau proteins that accumulate during waking hours. Research found that glymphatic clearance is 60 to 70% less efficient during light sleep compared to deep sleep. Social stress keeps you in lighter sleep stages, reducing waste clearance efficiency. The metabolic debris from a day of intense social cognition, all the byproducts of neurons firing constantly to process faces, voices, intentions, and emotions, accumulates faster than it can be cleared. Over time, this may contribute to the cognitive fog many people experience during periods of sustained social demand. Your brain is literally becoming cluttered with its own waste products. Deep, restorative sleep in a solitary, quiet environment allows the glymphatic system to work at full efficiency, flushing away the chemical remnants of social processing. Memory reconsolidation, the process by which memories are updated and modified, occurs primarily during sleep. When you recall a memory during waking hours, it becomes temporarily unstable and modifiable. Sleep restabilizes these memories, often integrating new information or emotional tones. Research found that socially stressful memories are particularly prone to negative emotional intensification during reconsolidation. If you fall asleep while still emotionally aroused from social interaction, your brain may consolidate those memories with enhanced negative effect, making them feel more intense in retrospect than they felt in the moment. This is one mechanism behind social worry's self-perpetuating cycle. Each day's social challenges are remembered as more difficult than they actually were, increasing tomorrow's apprehension. The intervention is simple but not easy. You need a period of calm emotional neutrality before sleep. Solitude provides this buffer zone. Time alone allows emotional arousal to decrease. So when sleep reconsolidation occurs, it happens in a neutral rather than activated state. Memories stabilize without additional negative shading. The default mode network, active during wakeful rest, mind wandering, and self-referential thinking, is essential for psychological integration and sense of self. This network includes the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and angular gyrus. Research revealed that the default mode network cannot properly activate during or immediately after social interaction. Social engagement suppresses default mode activity in favor of external attention networks. This suppression serves a purpose. You need to focus outward during conversation, but it comes at a cost. The default mode network is where you process personal meaning, integrate experiences into your life narrative, and maintain psychological continuity. Without adequate default mode activity, you begin to feel fragmented. disconnected from yourself, uncertain who you are beyond your social performances. Extended solitude allows the default mode network to fully activate. You can finally think your own thoughts, follow your own mental tangents, reconnect with your sense of self beyond social context. This isn't self-absorption. It's necessary maintenance of psychological coherence. Chronic social stress alters gene expression through epigenetic mechanisms. Research has identified specific patterns of gene expression, changes in people experiencing sustained social demands, increased expression of inflammatory genes, and decreased expression of genes involved in immune responses. These changes don't require years to manifest. Measurable epigenetic shifts occur within weeks of sustained social stress. The affected genes include those regulating sleep-wake cycles, particularly the circadian clock genes. Social stress can reprogram when your body thinks it should be asleep, often delaying sleep onset and reducing total sleep time. The reversal of these epigenetic changes requires not just stress reduction, but active restoration. Solitude provides the low-stress environment where gene expression can normalize. Your DNA slowly remembers its baseline rhythm, reactivating healthy sleep-wake patterns. This biological reset happens quietly, invisibly, in the space between you and the absence of others. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, one of the most effective non-pharmaceutical sleep treatments, includes a component called stimulus control. One key instruction: use your bedroom only for sleep and intimacy, not for socializing, working, or stimulating activities. The reasoning is classical conditioning. Your brain learns to associate environmental cues with particular states. Research extended this principle. People who spend significant time in social environments show weakened associations between home and safety, between bedroom and rest. Their living space becomes mixed with social arousal cues. The solution isn't just sleep hygiene in the bedroom. It's creating a threshold of solitude somewhere in your living space, a boundary beyond which social demands don't penetrate. When you protect even one room from social activity, your brain can begin relearning that this space means rest, not performance. The physical boundary creates a psychological boundary, and that boundary is where sleep becomes possible again. There's a phenomenon called social jet lag. Distinct from conventional jet lag, social jet lag occurs when your social obligations force you to sleep and wake at times misaligned with your natural circadian preference. Night owls forced to wake early for work. Morning larks forced to stay up late for social events. Both experience social jet lag. Research found that social jet lag affects a significant portion of working adults in industrialized societies. The consequences include increased inflammation, weight changes, mood shifts, and significantly reduced sleep quality. The misalignment isn't just with clock time, but with social time. You're awake and socially engaged when your body wants to sleep, or trying to sleep when social pressure says you should be available. Solitude offers one of the few paths to realignment. When you remove social demands, you can sleep when you're actually tired, wake when your body is naturally ready. Even a few days of sleep-wake timing guided by biology rather than social obligation begins to reset your circadian rhythm toward its natural phase. The neurotransmitter serotonin plays a complex role in both social behavior and sleep. Serotonin promotes feelings of contentment and belonging during positive social interaction. But research found that serotonin can become depleted after sustained social demands, particularly social demands involving status, competition, or social rejection. Low serotonin is associated with both mood challenges and insomnia. Interestingly, serotonin is also the precursor to melatonin, your primary sleep hormone. At night, the pineal gland converts serotonin into melatonin, initiating sleep. But if your serotonin has been depleted by social stress, there's less raw material available for melatonin production. This biochemical scarcity may explain the irony that days when you most need good sleep, days when you're most socially stressed, are precisely the days when sleep is most elusive. The restoration pathway requires 2 steps first. Remove the serotonin-depleting social stress. Second, allow time for serotonin synthesis to replenish reserves. Both steps require solitude. Only then can tonight's serotonin become tomorrow morning's restful awakening. Halfway through this journey, we can name what's emerging. Avoiding crowds helps you sleep better, not because you're antisocial or different, but because your nervous system is functioning exactly as designed. It's responding to genuine biological signals, depleted neurotransmitters, elevated stress hormones, exhausted cognitive circuits, accumulated social discomfort. The relief you feel in solitude isn't weakness, it's your body's wisdom, recognizing what it needs to heal. Sleep researchers concluded that social environment quality is as important to sleep as light exposure and temperature. You wouldn't shame yourself for sleeping poorly in a brightly lit, overheated room. Don't shame yourself for sleeping poorly after a day of social overstimulation. The solution is the same: change the environment. Create darkness, quiet, solitude. Let your exhausted social circuits finally power down. That's not avoiding life. That's honoring the biological reality of how your particular nervous system restores itself. And now, understanding this, we continue deeper into the science of social rest. Breathe now into the halfway point of this journey. You've traveled through the science of social exhaustion. You understand now that your need for solitude is written in neurochemistry, in gene expression, in the very structure of your social brain. Place both hands on your belly. Feel your breath moving beneath your palms. This breath is yours alone, requiring no one's approval, answering to no one's rhythm. Imagine all the voices you've heard today beginning to fade, like radio stations growing distant as you drive away, fading, fading, until there's only silence and the sound of your own breathing. You are exactly where you need to be, alone, but not lonely, resting, not hiding. Let this knowing settle into your bones. And we continue into the deeper territories of rest. During REM sleep, your brain paralyzes your voluntary muscles to prevent you from acting out dreams. This paralysis requires absolute trust in your environment's safety. Research found that people who sleep in environments where they feel socially vulnerable, where they might be interrupted, observed, or needed by others, show significantly reduced REM sleep time, even when they're not consciously aware of feeling unsafe. Your brain stem, which controls REM muscle paralysis, monitors for concern continuously, the presence of others, even beloved others, can register as potential interruption. This primitive safety system evolved when being paralyzed during sleep while others were awake created genuine vulnerability. Your brainstem doesn't distinguish between ancient concerns and modern social interruption. It simply registers others are present. Therefore, complete paralysis carries risk. The solution your brain chooses is less REM, lighter sleep, quicker potential awakening. Solitude removes this unconscious calculation. Your brainstem receives the signal, no one here. Safe to fully paralyze. Safe to dream deeply. The anterior insula, a brain region involved in interoception, sensing your internal body state, becomes hyperactive during social stress. You become acutely aware of your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion, any internal sensation. Research using fMRI found that this heightened interoceptive awareness persists for hours after social interaction ends, creating a state of uncomfortable, self-focused attention. You notice every ache, every tension, every irregularity. This hyperfocus on internal sensations is incompatible with sleep, which requires a kind of benign neglect of body signals. When you're monitoring every heartbeat, sleep remains elusive. Your attention keeps pulling you back toward wakefulness to check if everything is acceptable. In solitude, particularly extended solitude, interoceptive intensity gradually diminishes. The anterior insula quiesces. Your awareness can diffuse outward or simply dim entirely, no longer compulsively checking internal states. This release from self-monitoring is often the final permission your brain needs to let consciousness slip away into sleep. Social support generally promotes health and well-being, but research revealed a crucial nuance. The relationship is U-shaped, not linear. Both too little and too much social connection are associated with reduced sleep quality, elevated inflammation, and increased health challenges. The optimal zone appears to be moderate social connection with regular periods of solitude. The researchers termed this social titration, finding your particular optimal dose of people. For some, that's several hours daily. For others, it's several hours weekly. What matters isn't matching some external standard, but honoring your nervous system's actual capacity. If crowds leave you sleepless, that's your body telling you that you've exceeded your social dose. This isn't pathology. It's information. Your sleep is the biofeedback mechanism telling you that yesterday's social exposure was beyond your system's processing capacity. The wisdom is in listening, adjusting, titrating downward until sleep returns naturally. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, your brain's master circadian clock, responds to social zeitgebers, social time cues, almost as strongly as it responds to light. Meal timing, conversation timing, the schedule of social obligations all entrain your internal clock. Research found that irregular social timing creates circadian disruption comparable to shift work. When your social life keeps unpredictable hours, late dinners some nights, early meetings others, weekend social events disrupting sleep schedules, your suprachiasmatic nucleus receives conflicting signals about when day and night truly are. The resulting circadian confusion manifests as insomnia, daytime fatigue, and mood instability. Solitude offers an unexpected gift when you're alone. You can align your schedule with your biological clock rather than social obligations. You can eat when actually hungry, sleep when actually tired, wake when naturally ready. This chronobiological freedom allows your suprachiasmatic nucleus to settle into its intrinsic rhythm, unperturbed by the complexity of other people's schedules. Stress-induced hyperarousal creates a challenging cycle. Social stress elevates arousal. Arousal prevents sleep. Poor sleep increases stress sensitivity, which increases arousal further. Breaking this cycle requires intervention at multiple points simultaneously. Research found that the most effective intervention wasn't medication or therapy alone, but environmental modification, creating a protected period of low-stress solitude before sleep. Participants who enforced a social sunset, no social interaction in the 2 hours before bed, showed significant improvements in sleep latency, total sleep time, and slow-wave sleep percentage within just 1 week. The environmental change broke the cycle at its source. Without new social stress being added, baseline arousal could finally decrease. Lower arousal permitted sleep. Better sleep reduced next-day stress sensitivity. The cycle reversed. The intervention was simple, requiring no skills or pharmaceuticals, just a boundary. Just 2 hours of guaranteed aloneness between the social world and the sleeping world. Your immune system and sleep system are intimately connected through cytokine signaling. Cytokines are small proteins that immune cells use to communicate. Some cytokines promote sleepiness as part of the inflammatory response. This is why you feel exhausted when fighting an infection. Your immune system is commandeering your sleep system to facilitate healing. But research discovered that chronic social stress elevates these same sleep-promoting cytokines, yet doesn't produce restful sleep. Instead, it creates a state called tired but wired. You feel physically exhausted but mentally alert. Your immune system signaling for rest, while your vigilant system signals for awareness. The conflicting signals cancel each other out, leaving you in an uncomfortable middle zone. Removing social stress allows immune signaling to normalize. Cytokine levels that were chronically elevated finally decrease. The spurious sleep signals stop, allowing genuine sleep signals, driven by adenosine and circadian rhythm, to operate clearly. Your body stops giving you mixed messages, and sleep becomes possible again. There's a measurable phenomenon called social recovery time, the duration required for stress biomarkers to return to baseline after social interaction. Research found that recovery time varies dramatically based on interaction quality and individual differences. After a positive social interaction, cortisol returns to baseline within 30 to 60 minutes. After a challenging social interaction, it can take 4 to 6 hours. After sustained crowding or social stress, full recovery might require 12 to 24 hours. This means if you're experiencing difficult social interactions daily, you may never fully recover before the next stressor arrives. Your baseline stress level ratchets upward incrementally, day by day. Sleep becomes increasingly difficult as you're trying to sleep from an elevated baseline. The only solution is to create recovery periods longer than the stress exposure. If you're stressed for 8 hours daily, you need more than 8 hours of unstressed time to recover. Mathematics demands solitude. Your nervous system needs time to return to zero before sleep becomes accessible again. Loneliness activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your body's main stress response system, triggering cortisol release and inflammatory responses. But chosen solitude does the opposite. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system and reduces HPA axis activity. The distinction is entirely in perceived control. Research found that the brain regions activated by loneliness versus chosen solitude are almost completely non-overlapping. Loneliness activates concern centers. Solitude activates restoration centers. This neural distinction has profound implications. When you choose to be alone because you need rest, you're not creating loneliness. You're creating the conditions for parasympathetic activation. Your body interprets chosen solitude as safety, not abandonment. This interpretation determines whether being alone heals or harms. The narrative matters. I'm alone because no one wants me triggers difficulty. I'm alone because I need to recover triggers healing. Same circumstance, opposite physiology. Entirely dependent on the story your brain tells about why you're alone. Sleep restriction impairs social cognition, and impaired social cognition leads to more social stress, which further restricts sleep. Research demonstrated this bidirectional relationship clearly. After just one night of poor sleep, people showed reduced activity in the superior temporal sulcus, impairing their ability to read facial expressions accurately. They misinterpreted neutral faces as unfriendly and missed genuine emotional signals. This led to more awkward interactions, more social mistakes, more perceived rejection. The resulting social stress then further impaired next night's sleep. The cycle spirals. The intervention point is clear. Prioritize sleep over socializing until the cycle breaks. This might mean declining invitations, leaving events early, choosing solitude even when opportunities for connection exist. It might feel antisocial, but it's actually pro-social in the longer term. Restoring your social brain's function through adequate sleep makes you capable of better, more genuine connection when you do engage. Sometimes the most social thing you can do is be temporarily alone. The bed nucleus of the stria terminalis, a small brain structure connecting your amygdala to your hypothalamus, mediates sustained worry responses. Unlike the amygdala, which responds to immediate concerns, the BNST responds to potential future uncertainties and ambiguous social situations. Research found that BNST activation is strongly correlated with social anticipatory worry, thinking about tomorrow's presentation, replaying today's awkward conversation, imagining next week's difficult interaction. This structure becomes hyperactive after sustained social stress and remains active for hours, generating the rumination that prevents sleep. Interestingly, the BNST is highly sensitive to environmental safety cues. Physical isolation, particularly in a familiar, safe space, sends inhibitory signals to the BNST. The absence of people is itself a safety cue. As the BNST quiets, social rumination decreases. The mental replay of social scenarios slows and eventually stops. Your mind can finally move away from social processing toward the content-free awareness that precedes sleep. REM sleep is when the brain processes emotional memories, often stripping away excessive emotional intensity while preserving factual content. This process, called emotional memory consolidation, depends on specific neurochemical conditions: high acetylcholine, low norepinephrine, and low serotonin. Research found that social stress disrupts this neurochemical profile, maintaining higher norepinephrine during sleep and reducing REM's emotional processing efficiency. The result is that emotionally charged social memories aren't properly processed. They remain as intense and unsettling as when they formed. This explains why social worries can feel frozen in time. Why an embarrassing moment from years ago still triggers full-body discomfort. Your REM sleep hasn't been able to process and neutralize the emotion. Creating optimal conditions for REM requires reducing social stress before sleep. The norepinephrine needs to drop fully, only in solitude, with no active social concerns. Can your nervous system achieve the low norepinephrine state that allows REM to do its emotional healing work? The concept of social sanctuary has emerged in sleep research as a critical factor in sleep quality. It refers to having at least one physical space where social demands cannot reach you. No phone calls, no visitors, no responsibilities to others. Research found that people who reported having a social sanctuary showed significantly better sleep quality than those who felt constantly socially accessible. The difference wasn't personality, income, or relationship quality. It was simply having a guaranteed refuge. The modern world makes social sanctuary increasingly rare. Smartphones mean you're theoretically always reachable. Open-plan living spaces mean you're always potentially visible or available for connection. The absence of sanctuary creates a subtle but pervasive tension. You can never fully let down your guard because connection might be requested any time. Sleep requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires certainty of safety. Creating social sanctuary isn't selfish. It's establishing the basic environmental condition that makes genuine rest physiologically possible. Slow-wave sleep, the deepest stage of non-REM sleep, is when growth hormone is released. Tissue repair occurs, and immune function is enhanced. This is the sleep that makes you feel truly rested. Research found that social stress specifically suppresses slow-wave sleep while leaving lighter sleep stages relatively intact. You might sleep 7 hours, but get only 20 minutes of slow-wave sleep instead of the optimal 90 minutes. The result is, you wake feeling unrefreshed, as though you haven't slept at all. The mechanism involves cortisol. Even slightly elevated cortisol prevents the deep delta-wave brain patterns characteristic of slow-wave sleep. Your brain remains in lighter, more alert sleep stages, more easily awakened, less restorative. The irony is that after a stressful day, you need slow-wave sleep most. But stress makes slow-wave sleep least accessible. The only path through is reducing cortisol before attempting sleep. That reduction requires time in a non-stimulating environment. It requires not engaging with people, problems, or performance. It requires the specific medicine of being alone. Your sleep architecture, the pattern of cycling through sleep stages, has an optimal rhythm. A complete cycle takes approximately 90 minutes, and you need 4 to 6 complete cycles for full restoration. But research found that social stress fragments this architecture. You still cycle through stages, but the transitions become more frequent and more abrupt. You might enter light sleep, then briefly touch slow-wave sleep, then shift back to light sleep, then into REM for a few minutes, then back to light sleep again. The fragmentation means you never sustain any stage long enough for its restorative processes to complete. Memory consolidation requires sustained REM. Physical restoration requires sustained, slow-wave sleep. Fragmented sleep provides neither. The fragmentation is driven by residual nervous system activation from social stress. Your vigilance system keeps checking, is it safe? Can I fully let go? Each check creates a brief arousal, fragmenting the sleep architecture. Solitude allows the vigilance system to finally answer yes. it's safe, permitting the long, uninterrupted sleep cycles that true restoration requires. We're beginning to understand that avoiding crowds helps sleep not through a single mechanism, but through a cascade of interconnected biological processes. Social stress elevates cortisol, which blocks adenosine receptors, preventing sleep pressure from working. It depletes serotonin, reducing melatonin production. It activates the HPA axis, triggering sustained physiological arousal. It fragments sleep architecture, preventing restorative sleep stages. It overactivates awareness networks, creating rumination. It depletes neurotransmitters needed for emotional regulation. Each mechanism feeds into others, creating a web of sleep disruption. Solitude doesn't just address one point in this web. It addresses the source, the presence of social demands. Remove that source, and the entire cascade begins reversing. Cortisol drops. Adenosine can work. Serotonin replenishes. The HPA axis calms. Sleep architecture normalizes. Rumination decreases. The interconnected disruptions become interconnected healings. This is why even one night of true solitude can produce such dramatic improvement. You're not fixing one problem. You're removing the keystone that was holding an entire architecture of dysfunction in place. There's a concept in sleep medicine called sleep opportunity. The time you're actually in bed with the opportunity to sleep versus time asleep. Research shows that sleep efficiency, the ratio of sleep time to sleep opportunity, is crucial for sleep quality. But social stress affects sleep opportunity before it affects sleep efficiency. When you know you'll need to be social tomorrow, when you're processing today's social interactions, when you're anticipating future social demands, you delay going to bed. You scroll your phone, watch television, find small tasks to complete. This bedtime procrastination is actually a form of freedom-seeking, delaying the loss of consciousness because waking hours feel like the only time that's truly yours. Research found that people with high social demands during the day show significantly higher rates of bedtime procrastination, sacrificing sleep to gain a small pocket of solitude. The solution isn't discipline. It's creating adequate solitude during waking hours, so you don't need to borrow it from sleep time. When you've had enough alone time during the day, bed becomes rest, not the only refuge from people. Sleep opportunity increases naturally. The habenula, a small brain structure involved in processing negative outcomes and inhibiting dopamine release, becomes overactive in response to chronic social stress. Research found that habenula hyperactivity is strongly associated with both mood challenges and insomnia. When the habenula is overactive, positive experiences produce less reward, and negative experiences produce more intensity. The world feels grey, unrewarding, difficult. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle. You avoid socializing because it feels unrewarding. But isolation can increase habenula activity, making everything feel more challenging. The intervention is counterintuitive. You need temporary, complete solitude, not partial social engagement. Brief. Unsatisfying social interactions keep the habenula activated, but extended solitude, particularly in nature or engaging in solitary activities you find meaningful, allows the habenula to gradually decrease its activity. As it quiets, dopamine signaling normalizes. The world regains color and interest, and sleep becomes restorative rather than an escape from bleakness. Sleep spindles, brief bursts of brain activity during stage 2 sleep, act like librarians for your brain, cataloging the day's experiences. Research reveals that these delicate neural rhythms help your mind decide what social patterns to remember and what to quietly release. They also help your brain gate out sensory disturbances during sleep. Social stress reduces spindle production, making you more sensitive to noise, more likely to wake to small sounds. Your sleep becomes fragile, easily disrupted. The reduction in spindles also impairs social learning. You can't effectively consolidate the day's social experiences into usable patterns for future navigation. This creates an irony. The days when you most need to learn from social interaction are the days when sleep spindles are most impaired, preventing effective learning. Solitude allows spindle production to normalize. Your brain can finally consolidate, finally learn, finally filter out noise, and sleep deeply. The learning you couldn't do during the stressful period becomes possible once you've had adequate social rest. Circadian misalignment. When your internal clock doesn't match your external schedule, creates what researchers call circadian stress. This is independent of sleep duration. You can get 8 hours of sleep at the wrong circadian phase and still experience significant health consequences. Research suggests that social obligations contribute significantly to circadian misalignment in modern societies, joining shift work and irregular schedules as major disruptors of natural sleep-wake rhythms. You stay up late for dinner parties when your body wants sleep. You wake early for meetings when your body wants rest. You're socially active during your personal biological night. The misalignment disrupts not just sleep, but metabolism, immune function, and mental health. Solitude offers circadian liberation. When you're accountable only to yourself, you can sleep and wake according to your natural rhythm. Even a weekend of solitude with unrestricted sleep timing can partially reset your circadian phase. Regular periods of social free time allow your internal clock to express its true preferences. Creating a template of healthy rhythm you can approximate even during socially constrained weeks. The ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, your brain's sleep switch, needs to overcome arousal signals from multiple wake-promoting centers before it can initiate sleep. It's like a gentle balance between sleep and wake. Social stress strengthens the wake-promoting side. The orexin system, the norepinephrine system, the histamine system all remain more active. The sleep switch has to work harder to overcome this resistance. Research found that chronic social stress can weaken the sleep switch itself, reducing its signaling capacity. The switch doesn't just face stronger opposition, it becomes a weaker switch. This double burden makes sleep initiation extremely difficult. The intervention requires strengthening the sleep switch while weakening wake promotion simultaneously. Solitude does both. Without social stimulation, wake-promoting systems naturally decrease activity. The sleep switch doesn't need to overcome as much resistance, and over time, regular, adequate sleep in solitude strengthens the switch's signaling capacity. It becomes more robust, more capable of initiating sleep even when wake promotion isn't perfectly quiet. You're not just resting, you're rebuilding your brain's capacity to rest. Emotional regulation requires significant prefrontal cortex resources. When you're tired, particularly when socially tired, emotional regulation becomes challenging. You become irritable, tearful, reactive. But research revealed something important. The relationship is bidirectional. Reduced emotional regulation during the day predicts reduced sleep that night, and reduced sleep predicts reduced emotional regulation the next day. This creates a downward spiral. Social stress impairs emotional regulation, which impairs sleep, which further impairs emotional regulation. The spiral continues until something shifts, usually health, relationships, or functioning. The intervention point can be anywhere in the cycle, but removing social stress is often the most accessible. You might not be able to directly improve emotional regulation when exhausted, but you can remove the social situations that require constant regulation. In solitude, you can feel however you feel without managing it, presenting it, explaining it. Your prefrontal cortex can rest from its regulatory work. That rest allows sleep. Sleep restores regulatory capacity. The spiral reverses, beginning its upward climb. Sleep inertia, the grogginess you feel upon waking, is influenced by sleep depth and sleep stage at awakening. Waking from slow-wave sleep produces more intense sleep inertia than waking from light sleep. But research found something unexpected. Social stress affects sleep inertia independently of sleep stages. People who fell asleep in a state of social stress showed more intense sleep inertia even when awakened from light sleep. The mechanism appears to involve incomplete stress hormone clearance during sleep. Your brain partially processes the stress, but not fully. You wake still carrying residual arousal chemicals, creating a confused state. Simultaneously groggy from sleep and wired from stress hormones. This makes mornings after socially stressful days particularly difficult. You feel unwell, even if you slept reasonable hours. The intervention is completing the stress cycle before sleep. Solitude in the evening allows full processing and full hormonal clearance. When you sleep from a baseline of calm rather than stress, you wake from calm. Morning becomes gentle again rather than a battlefield of conflicting neurochemistry. The locus coeruleus, a small brainstem nucleus, is your brain's main norepinephrine source. It's quiet during sleep and active during waking. But research discovered that social stress can keep the locus coeruleus partially active even during sleep. Norepinephrine, which should be nearly absent during sleep, remains present at low levels. This creates a state of incomplete sleep. Your body is lying down. Your eyes are closed, but your brain maintains a thread of alertness. The evolutionary logic is clear when social uncertainty might exist. Complete unconsciousness carries risk. Better to maintain some alertness, some capacity for rapid awakening if concern materializes. Your locus coeruleus is protecting you by preventing complete rest. The protection comes at a cost. You never fully restore. The signal that allows locus coeruleus to fully quiet is environmental certainty of safety. Solitude provides this certainty more reliably than any other condition. No people means no potential social uncertainty. The locus coeruleus can finally stop its vigilance completely, allowing the deep, thorough rest your brain has been craving. Sleep and social connection exist in a delicate balance. Research found that optimal well-being requires both, but in a ratio that varies dramatically by individual. Some people need 8 parts social connection to 2 parts solitude. Others need the inverse. Most fall somewhere between. The crucial insight is that there's no universal correct ratio. What matters is finding your personal balance point, where sleep is restorative. Social connection is energizing rather than draining, and you feel like yourself. Modern society tends to push everyone toward more socializing, treating solitude seeking as concerning. But for many nervous systems, this push creates imbalance that manifests first as sleep disruption. Your insomnia might not be a sleep problem at all. It might be your body's way of saying your ratio is off. You're spending too much time in social mode and not enough in restoration mode. Listen to that signal. Honor what your sleep is telling you about your social life. Adjust the ratio. Trust that your particular nervous system knows what it needs. 3/4 through our journey, the answer has been forming like a photograph developing. Avoiding crowds helps you sleep better because your nervous system evolved for a different social world. Smaller groups, longer solitude, predictable patterns. Modern social demands can exceed our neurobiological design. The chronic activation of social processing circuits, the sustained elevation of stress hormones, the endless cognitive work of navigating complex social environments. These deplete the precise resources required for sleep initiation and maintenance. Solitude isn't escape or avoidance. It's restoration. It's allowing your social brain to power down so your sleeping brain can power up. It's giving your neurotransmitter systems time to replenish, your stress hormones time to clear, your cognitive circuits time to rest. The science is clear and convergent across research domains. Social rest is prerequisite for sleep rest. Your body already knows this. Every time you sigh with relief when the door closes and you're finally alone, that's wisdom. Every time sleep comes easily after a quiet day but eludes you after a peopled one, that's information. And now we continue into the deepest understanding yet. You might be feeling very tired now. That's perfectly okay. Breathe slowly. Feel the permission in this moment. Your need for solitude is not a flaw to fix, but a feature to honor. Like some plants need shade while others need sun. Some nervous systems need space, while others need contact. Notice how your body feels now. Alone in the dark with just these words. Notice the absence of performance, of vigilance, of management. This is your natural state when allowed to be. Not the person you present to the world, but the being beneath all presentation. You are recovering right now, in real time, molecule by molecule. As we speak, let yourself trust this recovery. Let yourself believe in the healing power of chosen solitude. We're almost there now. Just a little further into understanding. Sleep is ultimately about trust. Trust that you're safe enough to become unconscious, vulnerable enough to stop monitoring your environment, secure enough that the world will still be there when you wake. Every factor that improves sleep builds trust. Darkness says no one can see you. Quiet says nothing approaches. Warmth says your body needn't maintain vigilance. And solitude says no one will observe, need, or disturb you while you're defenseless. Research found that perceived safety is the single strongest predictor of sleep quality, and the most powerful safety signal for the human nervous system is the absence of other humans' unpredictable presence. This isn't misanthropy. It's biology. Only when you're genuinely alone can your brain fully believe you're safe. Only in safety can you fully sleep. There's a beautiful symmetry between sleep and solitude. Both involve withdrawal from the external world. Both prioritize internal processing over external responding. Both are restorative through absence. Absence of stimulation. Demand. Performance. Research found that the same neural networks that facilitate sleep also facilitate the psychological benefits of solitude. The default mode network, active during both, is where meaning-making and self-coherence emerge. When you're alone and awake, you can think your own thoughts. When you're alone and asleep, you can dream your own dreams. Both states require the same precondition, no one else's needs claiming your attention. Solitude is practice for sleep. Each evening alone is rehearsal for the ultimate aloneness of unconsciousness. There's an ancient wisdom in monasteries and contemplative traditions that science is now validating. These traditions understood that profound rest requires removal from society. Meditation retreats often involve noble silence, days or weeks without speaking to others. Research studying long-term meditation retreat participants found dramatic improvements in sleep quality, with participants showing sleep patterns resembling much younger adults. The mechanism wasn't meditation technique alone, but the extended social silence. No processing others' emotions. No managing social dynamics. No maintaining personas. Just being. Alone with your own consciousness. The neural networks that normally burn energy on social processing could redirect that energy toward restoration, healing, deepening. Perhaps what feels like withdrawal is actually abundance. Abundance of the space your nervous system needs to remember itself. Children need different amounts of social interaction than adults, and individual variation is enormous even in childhood. Research found that some children are naturally more socially oriented while others are naturally more solitude oriented. And these differences appear as early as age 2. These aren't deficits. They're variations in temperament with biological underpinnings. Some temperaments, characterized by greater sensitivity, need more downtime between social exposures. Neither is better. They're different strategies for navigating social worlds. Understanding this can prevent decades of self-questioning. If you needed more alone time than your peers since childhood, that wasn't shyness or difficulty. That was your particular nervous system communicating its needs. Honoring those needs isn't weakness. It's self-knowledge. The modern challenge of insomnia correlates with the modern reality of constant connectivity. Research comparing sleep quality across decades found that average sleep quality has declined in parallel with increases in social connectivity technology. The more ways we have to reach each other, the more sleep suffers. Each new connection technology creates new social possibilities, new ways to never be fully alone. The human nervous system hasn't evolved to handle this constant social availability. We're designed for communities of hundreds, not billions. We're designed for clearly bounded social time, not 24/7 potential contact. The price of constant connection is constant activation. And the price of constant activation is sleep. Perhaps the most essential sleep practice in the modern world isn't better technology, but boundaries. The protected space where no one can reach you, where you owe nothing, where you're gloriously, completely alone. Oxytocin creates bonding, but also creates care. When you bond with people, you become neurochemically invested in their well-being. Their concerns activate your concern circuits. Their needs become your awareness. This is beautiful in small doses, but overwhelming in large ones. Research found that people with large social networks show chronically elevated oxytocin and chronically elevated cortisol. The bonding creates caring, but caring creates vigilance. How are they? Do they need anything? Am I maintaining these relationships adequately? The mental load of social maintenance becomes substantial, and this load doesn't stop when you're alone. You carry it with you. True social rest requires not just physical separation, but psychological permission to stop caring temporarily, to let others be responsible for themselves, to release the vigilance for others' well-being. Protecting your solitude isn't abandoning others. It's ensuring you'll have something to give tomorrow. There's a phenomenon in group living situations where everyone's sleep becomes synchronized and collectively affected. Research found that college roommates and even partners show sleep pattern entrainment. They unconsciously sync their sleep timing and quality. When one person sleeps poorly, others often sleep poorly the same night. You're sleeping in someone else's sleep environment, not your own. Their breathing patterns, their temperature regulation, their movements all affect your sleep quality. This is why many people report sleeping better alone than with partners, even beloved partners. It's not lack of affection, it's neurobiology. Your sleep architecture runs most efficiently when it's the only program running. For people struggling with mental clarity or feeling foggy, experimenting with more solo sleep time might provide benefits. Sleep research has identified social noise, human voices, footsteps, doors closing, as particularly sleep disruptive compared to predictable environmental sounds. The reason is predictability. Your brain can habituate to predictable sounds, but must remain alert to unpredictable ones. Every voice might be addressing you. Every footstep might be approaching. Every door might be opening into your space. Your auditory cortex can't filter out these sounds the way it filters out steady hums. Even when you're asleep, sudden social sounds trigger partial arousals, fragmenting sleep architecture. Achieving quiet below 30 decibels in sleeping environments is nearly impossible in shared living spaces. The solution isn't just better soundproofing, though that helps, but actual human absence. Only when you're genuinely alone can you be certain that no voice will call your name. No footstep will interrupt your rest. Your chronotype, whether you're naturally a morning person, evening person, or somewhere between, is partially genetic and mostly fixed. Research identified multiple genes associated with circadian preference, confirming that chronotype isn't a choice or habit, but a biological reality. Social obligations that conflict with your chronotype create social jet lag, and it's remarkably common. A significant portion of working adults regularly sleep and wake, at times misaligned with their natural preference. The health consequences are substantial. Solitude offers chronotype liberation. When alone, you can sleep and wake according to your body's true preferences rather than social demands. Even a weekend honoring your natural rhythm provides measurable benefits. Respecting your chronotype isn't self-indulgence. It's biological hygiene as essential as nutrition or movement. There's a concept called relational energy. Some people give you energy, others require it. Research found that this subjective experience has objective correlates. After interactions with energy-giving people, participants showed increased parasympathetic activity and better sleep that night. After interactions with energy-requiring people, they showed sustained sympathetic activation and reduced sleep. The mechanism involves emotional labor, how much you have to regulate, perform, or suppress during the interaction. Energy-giving people allow authentic presence. Energy-requiring people necessitate constant management of what you show, say, or feel. Crowds tend toward energy depletion because they require more performance and less authenticity. Better to be alone than to deplete yourself further. Solitude becomes the neutral state from which you can recover enough to seek genuine connection again. Could avoiding crowds truly help you sleep better? By now, the answer is clear: yes. The evidence is biological, psychological, neurological, hormonal, and evolutionary. Social exhaustion is real exhaustion. The depletion of neurotransmitters, the elevation of stress hormones, the consumption of metabolic resources, the activation of concern circuits. These are measurable, objective phenomena. Your need for solitude after social exposure isn't weakness. It's your nervous system functioning exactly as designed, signaling that it needs recovery time. Sleep researchers now recognize social environment as a crucial sleep factor, as important as light, temperature, and comfort. Avoiding crowds isn't the complete answer to sleep challenges, but for many people, it's a necessary component. Animals that live in large groups show similar patterns of stress and sleep disruption. Research comparing primates found that individuals who naturally sought more distance from others showed better stress biomarkers and more restorative sleep patterns. The behavior was once interpreted as submissive. Now researchers recognize it as an adaptive strategy. Some individuals regulate their nervous systems through selective solitude. They're not failing at socializing. They're succeeding at self-care. This reframes human solitude seeking similarly. Maybe the people who naturally drift to the edges of gatherings, who prefer small groups to large, who need days alone to recover. Maybe they're not struggling. Maybe they're employing a valid strategy for nervous system regulation. Sleep deprivation and social isolation activate similar brain regions. Both are perceived as challenges. This creates a complex relationship. You need solitude to sleep, but prolonged isolation also harms sleep. The key is voluntary. Temporary solitude versus chronic, unwanted isolation. Research found that the distinction is entirely in perceived control and duration. Brief chosen solitude activates reward circuits and reduces stress. Extended enforced isolation activates concern circuits and increases stress. The optimal pattern appears to be rhythmic periods of social engagement, followed by periods of solitary recovery, like breathing. Inhale connection. Exhale solitude. The rhythm's pace varies by individual. What matters is honoring your particular rhythm rather than forcing yourself into someone else's pattern. The glymphatic system, which clears brain waste during sleep, works best when you're lying down in a quiet, dark environment with minimal stimulation. Recent research added a detail: the system is also more efficient when you're alone. The presence of others, even quietly sleeping partners, appears to slightly reduce glymphatic flow. This doesn't mean everyone should sleep alone always, but it suggests that periodic solo sleep might be neurologically beneficial for optimal brain detoxification. The modern assumption that sleeping with others is always better than sleeping alone isn't fully supported. For some people, in some circumstances, solitary sleep is not just acceptable, but optimal. Social media creates a unique challenge for sleep because it provides social stimulation without genuine social rest. Research found that people who limited social media to 30 minutes daily showed significant sleep quality improvements compared to unlimited use. Interestingly, in-person social interaction didn't show the same negative correlation with sleep. The difference is that real social interaction has natural endpoints. The conversation ends. People go home. The event concludes. Social media never ends. Your social processing circuits never fully power down. You're alone, physically but socially engaged, mentally. This creates an unfavorable situation. You don't get the restorative benefits of genuine solitude, and you don't get the connection benefits of genuine social engagement. True solitude requires not just physical separation from people, but digital separation as well. There's a growing recognition in sleep medicine that sleep hygiene needs to expand beyond the bedroom to include social hygiene. Managing your daily social exposure, the way you manage light exposure. Research developed a social hygiene protocol limit total social interaction to 6 to 8 hours daily for most people. Ensure at least 2 hours of complete solitude before bed. Minimize stimulating social interaction in the evening, and create one full day of minimal social obligation weekly. Participants following this protocol showed improvements comparable to other interventions, but without side effects. The intervention was purely environmental, changing social exposure rather than taking medication. This suggests that for many people with insomnia, the challenge isn't primarily in their sleep systems, but in their social systems. Highly empathic people, those who report feeling others' emotions intensely, show distinct neurological patterns. Their emotional systems are more active, their emotional contagion stronger, their social stress responses more pronounced. For these individuals, crowds aren't just tiring, they're emotionally overwhelming. Absorbing fragments of dozens of people's emotional states creates a kind of emotional overload. By evening, they often can't distinguish their own feelings from absorbed feelings. Sleep becomes nearly impossible in this confused state. They need not just physical solitude, but emotional solitude. Time in environments with no emotional content to process. Nature works well. Instrumental music. Simple, peaceful visual environments. The key is absence of human emotional signals. As their emotional circuits stop firing, as the absorbed emotions gradually clear, they can find their own emotional baseline again. Circadian rhythms evolved in the context of natural light-dark cycles, but they also evolved in the context of social solitary cycles. Our ancestors had communal daytime, but nighttime was relatively solitary. Research suggests that this social rhythm may be as important to circadian health as light rhythm. We're designed for social engagement during light hours and social disengagement during dark hours. Modern life violates this pattern constantly. Evening social events, late-night phone calls, digital social engagement lasting past midnight. The circadian confusion isn't just about light exposure. It's about social exposure at the wrong time. Your body interprets evening social engagement as a signal that it's still day. The intervention is simple but countercultural. Enforce a social sunset. Let your last social interaction end well before bed. There's a paradox in modern sleep science. We know more about sleep than ever before. Yet sleep quality is declining. We have sophisticated understanding, evidence-based interventions, targeted approaches. Yet insomnia rates climb. Research suggests we've been looking in the wrong direction. The challenge isn't primarily biological or behavioral. It's environmental and social. we've created a world that's fundamentally incompatible with the human nervous system's sleep requirements. Too bright, too loud, too connected. Individual sleep interventions can only partially compensate for an environment that's chronically sleep hostile. The real solution isn't better technology. It's cultural change. Creating environments that respect biology, building in regular solitude time, reducing social obligation density. Avoiding crowds helps you sleep better because it momentarily removes you from a fundamentally sleep-hostile social environment. The relationship between solitude and sleep reveals something profound about human well-being. We're social creatures, but we're not exclusively social. We need both connection and separation, both engagement and withdrawal. The challenge arises when either side dominates completely. Too much connection creates exhaustion and sleep disruption. Too much isolation creates loneliness and also sleep disruption. The healthiest human life alternates rhythmically between these poles. Your individual rhythm is yours to discover. Pay attention to your sleep. It's remarkably honest feedback about whether your social solitude balance is right. When sleep comes easily and feels restorative, you're probably close to your optimal rhythm. Usually, in modern life, the adjustment needed is toward more solitude, more space, more aloneness. Your exhaustion in crowds is information. Your relief in solitude is information. Your sleep quality is information. Solitude has gotten confused with loneliness in modern discourse, and that confusion harms both concepts. Loneliness is painful, involuntary disconnection. Solitude is peaceful, voluntary separation. They feel completely different, activate different neural circuits, produce different health outcomes. Research distinguishing them found that chosen solitude predicts better mental health, better stress resilience, better emotional regulation, and significantly better sleep. Unwanted isolation predicts worse outcomes across all these measures. The determining factor is choice. Do you have control over when you're alone and when you're connected? That autonomy is crucial for well-being. When you avoid crowds because you need rest, that's healthy solitude. Know which one you're experiencing. We're approaching the end of this journey, and the understanding that's emerged is both simple and profound. Avoiding crowds helps you sleep better because your nervous system is finite. It has limited capacity for social processing, limited neurotransmitter reserves, limited tolerance for stimulation. When you exceed those limits, sleep becomes impossible. Not because anything is wrong with you, but because you've asked your biology to do more than it's capable of without rest. The solution isn't fixing yourself. You're not broken. The solution is honoring your limits, creating boundaries that protect your nervous system's capacity to rest. This isn't failure. This is success at self-preservation. The crowds will still be there tomorrow, but only if you rest tonight. There's a kind of courage in admitting you need solitude. Modern culture glorifies social connection, treats extensive social engagement as success. To say I need to be alone can feel like admitting inadequacy. But research found that people who accurately recognize and honor their social needs, including needs for solitude, show better mental health outcomes than those who force themselves into uncomfortable social patterns. Honoring your needs isn't weakness. It's self-knowledge and self-respect. Your particular nervous system needs what it needs. Fighting that truth doesn't change it. Perhaps the real strength is knowing yourself well enough to choose your own well-being. And perhaps the clearest measure of that strength is sleep. Are you resting well? Your body already knows the answer. Sleep is where we're most ourselves. No persona, no performance, no social mask. Just the quiet animal of your body breathing in the dark, processing the day, preparing for tomorrow. You can only access this state in safety. And for many nervous systems, safety requires solitude. Not forever, not as permanent withdrawal, but as regular practice of returning to yourself, circling back to the being beneath the social presentation. This return is essential. Without it, you begin to lose yourself in the performance. Sleep is the nightly ritual that calls you back, but only if you let it. Only if you create the conditions, the solitude, where that call can be heard. Tonight, if nothing else. Permission to admit you need to be alone. Permission to choose your well-being. Permission to trust that the sleep your body is asking for matters. Why does avoiding crowds help you sleep better? Because you are alive before you're a social being. You are a breathing, sensing system that evolved over eons to balance connection and solitude. The crowds aren't wrong. Connection isn't wrong. But balance is essential. Your sleeplessness is your body's gentle rebellion against imbalance, refusing to rest until you give it what it needs. Space, quiet, and aloneness. Listen to that wisdom. Choose solitude when you need it. Leave the crowd when your nervous system asks. Protect your sleep, because it's where you heal, integrate, and remember yourself. That self, the one beneath all social performance. Alone in the dark, simply breathing, deserves rest, deserves peace, deserves the sweet relief of chosen solitude, leading into deep, restorative sleep. You are allowed. Good night. And so, our quiet journey through the science of social rest comes to a gentle close. We've traveled from the chemistry of crowds to the biology of solitude, discovering along the way that your exhaustion is information, your need for space is wisdom, and your relief in aloneness is your nervous system functioning exactly as designed. From cortisol cascades to glymphatic clearance, from emotional systems to circadian rhythms, we've glimpsed how deeply your biology craves the medicine of chosen solitude, how sleep and aloneness are intimate partners in the essential work of restoration. This science reminds us that well-being isn't one size fits all. Some nervous systems need more space, more quiet, more time alone between engagements. This isn't pathology. It's variation. The wisdom is in knowing yourself well enough to honor your particular needs, rather than forcing yourself into patterns that leave you exhausted and sleepless. Your body already knows what it requires. The courage is in listening. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can. As deep as possible, think about the unity of solitude and sleep, how both ask you to withdraw from the world, to trust in darkness, to surrender performance, and simply exist. You are not separate from this wisdom. You are not different for needing space. You are a nervous system beautifully calibrated to your own requirements. Let your entire being dissolve into the permission to rest, into the quiet joy of being alone, into the darkness that asks nothing and gives you back to yourself. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left between you and restoration. Only peace, only breath, only the sweet relief of finally being unreachable. If this gentle exploration of social exhaustion helped you understand your own need for solitude, perhaps share it softly with someone else who's searching for permission to rest. A quiet like, subscribe, or share might help another sleepless soul discover that their exhaustion is valid. Their needs are real. Their biology is wise. One quiet tap, one peaceful night at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight. Through neuroscience and wisdom both, you can allow these thoughts of social rest to fade now, like voices growing distant as you walk away from a crowd, leaving only the peaceful quiet behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if the earth itself is gently pulling you down, welcoming you back to stillness. If sleep comes, let it carry you like a wave pulling back from shore, smoothly, inevitably, into a realm where no one can reach you, where you owe nothing, where you're finally, completely alone in the kindest possible way. If your eyes are still open, another video is waiting, ready to continue this journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the people will still be there. The world will still need navigating. But tonight belongs to your nervous system's restoration. Tonight belongs to the deep, private healing that only solitude and sleep can offer. Rest well, tired soul, and remember, your need for space isn't something to fix. It's your body's ancient wisdom, protecting you, guiding you toward what you need to thrive. The crowds can wait. Right now, you rest. Fall asleep to psychology facts, where science meets sleep. Dream deeper with bedtime science. Relax, listen, and drift into sleep. Good night.